Brownie.
It's a podcast bonus.
Oh, shut up. Good morning, Melbourne. It's Chrissy, Sam and Brownie. Oh, no robust Leo debate happening in the studio. Titus O'Reilly is here.
I am. We might.
news, mate?
I shouldn't talk footy.
Yeah, we
Shouldn't I?
should, yeah.
You're going tomorrow night, Melbourne, Sydney?
I am. So finals are back in Melbourne, which I'm thrilled because this is always when lockdowns were happening this time of year in Melbourne, spring, finals starts to get warm. This is
Isn't
the
it
best.
magic?
It's the best time of year.
The best.
And because you come out of that winter fog where you're just sick of it's 13 every day. And this is what I hate about lockdown. The other thing I hate about lockdown is I would have just willingly been microchipped by Bill Gates. They didn't need to go through all the theatre, all the carry-on.
They
You
could
know
have
what
just
I
set
mean?
up a marquee in the car park
Yeah,
and you
just
would have
said,
queued
come
up.
get microchipped,
Yeah.
and I would have done it, you know? Like, give me my 2 years back, you know? It seemed overdone that they didn't need to do it. But I love having it back. And as a Melbourne supporter, I love the fact that I can go to a final, game in the finals tomorrow without risking going to jail.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Babbage and Burbank, are they going to be on the scene this year?
Well,
Those special guests at the AFL
Babbage and
function
Burbank
tonight?
were in the news
They
a couple of weeks ago. They
Well-
were obviously
the-
the Melbourne supporters that flouted the rules.
They flouted the rules. They went through Darwin and
Yes.
they apparently lied on some forms. And one of them, I think the one that owns the nightclub, he's been okay. There was a story about him being in Europe or something. But the other one, who's a financial advisor, he lost his licence because of he forged documents. Sort of.
Babbage.
It's not a.
Did he open a bar?
Well, I don't know what he's
Instead.
doing, but I've always wondered if those guys were really Melbourne supporters, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a Melbourne supporter, you can get a lawyer that can get you out of that.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Actually, that's a good point.
Oh, in hindsight, are we surprised? Are we surprised that we're not talking about Burbank, Babbage and O'Reilly?
Well, that's because
Yeah.
no one knew I was there. Because I've got good lawyers.
Yeah.
Actually, if I'm committing fraud,
Yeah.
which, writing, like, falsifying documents, which, regularly do, I don't then go and get photographed with all the... They were photographed with everyone.
That was
Do you know what I mean? And
That
then
was the
posted on
era.
Instagram.
Jeez, it looked like a good time, though.
Including Gil.
Yeah. Yeah, they got a
one with
picture with
Gil.
Gil. Yeah,
yeah,
and all the
absolutely.
players
In the rooms
and
afterwards.
in the rooms afterwards. They had pictures with everyone, and they put them all on Insta.
What
They
do you-
obviously-
This is the thing. People thought 1984 and George Orwell that there'd be this big brother watching us all. They didn't realise we'd just self-incriminate.
Yeah.
You know how difficult those rooms are, especially during COVID times, those rooms are to get into post-grand final.
Yeah, so they knew
clearly
people.
they knew people.
You
Very
own a
high up.
nightclub, you can get into a room of AFL players. You know, it's
So,
not
Brett,
that
what do you
hard.
think
It's hard to get into the rooms, though.
Oh,
Post-grand
really?
final.
What do you think about this theory? Brownie's got a theory that if Melbourne make their own final, like I know how busy you would be during a Melbourne grand. Brownie, if Brisbane make it a very busy Swanee with various functions.
Yes.
And Brownie reckons that if Melbourne make it, Burbank and Babbage will be well sought after on the spectrum circuit.
I agree.
real.
Really?
Yeah.
They'll be knocking off premiership players, not there's many Melbourne former premiership players.
Yeah.
Still alive, but they'll be knocking in terms of your
Hello,
go-to.
Ron
if you're
Barassi.
organising
Barassi, yeah.
If Melbourne gets in, if you're organising a function,
Mate, I'm all
I'm
ears.
going straight for Babbage and Burbank.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
So, it's a great
Having said that,
vantage
though,
point.
people that organise these kinds of functions aren't really inspired.
They'll
with
get the footy
interesting
club
choices.
ones.
Do
They
you know
won't
what I
get the
mean?
corporate.
Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah.
Can I just, this caught my eye, just moving off footy for a second, because you've had all this stuff with Shaq recently.
Jonathan, I'm
going
very
on,
fortunate
Jonathan and
enough
you,
to,
very lucky. But I saw something last week that caught my eye on the back of all this is Dennis Rodman
Oh, yeah.
has offered to go. So the Brittany Griner, who's the American basketballer who is in jail in Russia and has become a bit of a political pawn, but Putin arrested him. As the sanctions came on, she was playing in Russia and they arrested her and said she'd had cannabis oil in her bag.
And she's gone inside. She's a WNBA player.
WNBA player, gold medalist, plays for America. She's in jail and
For 10 years.
for 10 years.
Far out.
So Dennis Rodman has said, "I'll go to Russia because I've got experience being an ambassador."
And isn't he really good friends with Putin?
Well, no, he doesn't know Putin, but he
that's
says
the
he
North
likes
Korean
him.
leader.
Kim
But he
Jong-un.
likes Kim Jong-un. So I was looking into this, and I had to laugh because I'm reading this thing about Dennis Rodman and stuff. So I started Googling and looking at Dennis Rodman's career as an ambassador with, Kim Jong-un. And I was like, how did he end up in North Korea in the first place,
Yeah,
right? We all
yeah.
know now he's still friends with Kim Jong-un, but how did this all happen? And so I found out that Vice, you know the show Vice News, the Vice News network, the docos and all that,
Yeah.
edgy docos. When Kim Jong-un came in, I think it was like 2013, they said, how do we get to him? And they knew he was a Bulls fan because he spent time in Switzerland, Kim Jong-un, like a terrible dictator. So they said, let's try and get Jordan. Jordan says no. Let's get Scottie Pippen. Pippen says no. Let's get Dennis Rodman. And they said, Dennis, do you want to come do some basketball diplomacy, sign some autographs, run a thing?
Where was Luke Longley?
Yeah. They say
Again, overlooked.
they say yes. So Rodman's agent, Darren Prince, he gets to work organising the trip, right? So he does all of that, negotiates it all. The problem was he didn't know there were two Koreas. He didn't know there was a North and South Korea.
Yes.
So he thinks I'm just organising a basketball trip for Rodman to do an exhibition and sign some autographs.
In Seoul.
He just goes, in Korea, great, we'll do it, right? So they're on the plane to Beijing. They're going to go fly to Beijing and then fly to Pyongyang.
Yeah.
They're on the plane flying to Beijing with Rodman's there and all this, and Rodman just thinks, I'm doing this thing. Rodman's also got a manager. So he's got his agent who's organised this, but then he's got his the day-to-day manager. And the day-to-day manager says, Darren Prince, starts talking to him and doesn't seem right. And he says, can I see the contract? And the guy goes, oh, yeah, and brings it up on his laptop and shows the contract. And the manager reads it. And he looks at Rodman's agent and goes, you idiot, you're thinking of South Korea. He said, show it to me. He goes, mate, this says Pyongyang. You cannot send Dennis to North Korea. Do you understand what type of place this is?
Why didn't they check before they got on the plane?
Well, because the agent didn't know there was a difference between. He just
of
thought there
course.
was one Korea.
They're Americans, Swanee, remember?
They're Americans. He didn't know.
Bad sign for Dennis Rodman to have a manager who's dumber than him.
Yeah. So they land in Beijing. They land in Beijing, and Dennis still doesn't know what's going on or what's happening. And he's in Beijing, and they're about to get on the plane, and he goes, so just to let you know, Dennis, we're going to North Korea, because Dennis doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about Korea at all. So he's like, okay, so he's on the plane flying to meet this dictator, and he is oblivious.
It's good to know how it all started.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
I have wondered how they became friends.
But how great they stayed in touch.
Well, they did. So they went to
Pen
the
pals.
Letters to each other.
Yeah.
the first night. He plays basketball and meets him, and he invites him back to this drink, and they all get absolutely drunk. They're drinking like this Korean spirit, which is fire water, and Kim Jong-un has 12 shots while they're talking, and one of the guys from Vice, they're in the middle and they're all partying, and this guy is a producer for Vice, filming this trip. He's got a whole tumbler of Johnny Walker Black, and he has a little sip, and then the dictator, Kim Jong-un, stands up and doesn't speak English, the author interpreter starts yelling at him, and he thinks, oh my God, what faux pas have I committed? I could get killed here. And the translator says, he wants you to skull the whole thing.
Yes.
So he skulls the whole thing.
Jesus.
And then he's partying with all the North Koreans to the point where Dennis Rodman comes over to this producer from Vice and goes, I'm going to need you to calm down. You're embarrassing me in front of Kim Jong-un.
Dennis Rodman told him
he
to
goes,
settle
when
down.
you're partying at a dictator's party and Dennis Rodman tells you you need to bring it down a level.
Unbelievable.
What a great story. Is this going to be covered off in your podcast?
It is, yeah. So that once I read all of this, there's like 1,000 other things.
Fantastic.
We're going to
Of
have that
course,
up in the next
I'm
week or
talking
so.
about Sports Bazaar with the great Mick Malloy.
But isn't that the best?
Mate.
Talk about when next time someone says, I got a bad manager, I got a
That'd
bad
be
agent,
unbelievable.
go, do they know the difference between South
That'd
and
be
North
like
Korea?
that'd be like Brownie on a footy trip with Pikey coming over and going, mate, just settle down.
Chrissy, Sam and Brownie. Ripper Show will be back tomorrow. Chrissy, Sam and Brownie. Oh, unless it's a weekend.
Over 100.